So, you just got your braces on. The first thing I want you to know after getting braces for the first time, tooth soreness. It's unavoidable. As you move teeth, your body responds and your teeth basically become sore. It might be a little uncomfortable to chew into things or even soft foods, at least for a while. The first 24 to 72 hours is usually when it's most uncomfortable. Sometimes the soreness can last a little bit longer than that, but mostly it goes away. And after the first time that you get braces and the wires tightened, all the subsequent visits, usually the tightening you get a little bit sore, but maybe not as bad as the first time. So that is good news. If you need medicine, some people do, you can consider what you would take for a headache. Common medications for tooth soreness are ibuprofen and Tylenol. The next thing I want you to know is that with these new brackets, wires, all of it, even in its proper position at first, might make your lips, your cheeks, your tongue, your gums feel a little bit uncomfortable. You can see with all these brackets, right? They've got posts, things like that. They're just a little bit protrusive from the tooth. It might rub against your cheeks, your lips, but usually over time, your tissue can develop callus. So it can get better. Your tissue can adapt very well with sufficient time. The next thing maybe you're wondering is, when can I eat and what can I eat? In our office, we use a bright light that helps the glue harden really fast. And so you can eat right away. The brackets will be as strong as they're going to be as soon as you get them put in your mouth. Now, just because you can eat right away doesn't mean that you should eat anything. This is a good guideline. Hard, crunchy, chewy foods, snacks, or candies that you should be cautious about because they might increase your risk for breaking brackets or causing wires to move around more. We recommend that you consider the risk because excessive bracket breakages or wire breakages can cost extra money. What are some examples of those types of hard, crunchy, chewy? Even good foods like carrots, apples, those are things that you might want to watch out for. Chomping into them, pop those brackets right off, at least potentially. Granola, seeds, watch out for chewing on ice. Those of you who are Takis or really crunchy chips, nuts, really chewy, maybe like very well done steak. And don't be sticking your hands in your mouth, right? Don't be chewing on fingernails, putting pressure against those brackets. Pencils, pens, bottle caps. Watch out for the chewy candies. Don't forget about popcorn kernels. I mean, not that people eat the kernels, but eating popcorn. Be careful. Corn on the cob. Some of these things you ought to consider cutting up into smaller pieces, seeing if you can make it smaller, or just know that if you're going to eat this, that you might increase your risk of breakages and all those things that I just said. Don't forget about those crunchy breads, like the cardboard stuff, the pizza cardboard bread. Yeah. Watch out for those. So we said hard, crunchy, chewy. Well, what about the sticky and the very sugary, acidic types of foods or drinks? Sugary foods, acidic foods are things that can lead to decay. We all have bacteria in our mouth, and certain types of bacteria, they jump on the opportunity to digest all of that sugary junk food that you eat or drink. Eventually, they deposit acid on your teeth that leads to the breakdown of your enamel. It goes super far in there, and you eventually need something like a root canal. So be very careful with what you eat. You want to go through this process of straightening your teeth, but you don't want to end up with spots or cavities, things that you have to pay more to fix. Now we're going to talk about how do we keep these clean? How do we maintain them? In my opinion, your toothbrush is your most important asset as it relates to keeping your teeth clean. There's just areas where the food can get stuck up above the brackets, up here, down here, and so it's really hard to get underneath there unless you're very specific and intentional. So what you have to do is you get in front of, nice bright light, smile in the mirror, and then you start working. You take your toothbrush and you go on top. If you can see that, right? I'm going to demonstrate from the side. You go on top and you get that toothbrush up above the bracket, and then you might even get below the bracket. You can check out our other videos. Be sure to try and reach all the way back, right? That's hard too. Sometimes if you open too wide, you can't get that toothbrush all the way back because you're starting to hit bone. So if you close down a little bit, then you can get up in there above. I like the idea of circular motions, right? You're trying to do that, all right? You do all the way around, all right? You'd be coming from this way. And then you go underneath, right? Trying to get all that stuff off. Do you have to have all the small brushes that go underneath the wire? No, right? Something like this can be sufficient. Once you've brushed all over the place, right? You've taken some time to do that. What you need to do is rinse your mouth out with water, spit it out, and check your teeth. Clean teeth should have a nice shine to them. Clean, well-defined gum tissue, and even a light pink color. And if you rinse out and you see that you still got white fuzzy stuff on your teeth near the bracket, you gotta spend more time. Continue the process. Rinse and repeat. Keep doing it over and over until your teeth are clean. You don't necessarily want to make yourself bleed, but sometimes bleeding is not because of the brushing, it's because you've got plaque there that needs to get off. After you've done that, you can consider either rinsing with water or some sort of fluoride-based rinse. But you don't necessarily have to get a fluoridated mouth rinse. Water is your most basic rinse. Rinsing should not replace brushing, okay? And then after that, we have flossing. Some people use water picks. Some people use the normal flossing with a floss threader. You can check out our other video. We've got a link here on how to get the floss underneath the wires and floss. But flossing shouldn't even replace brushing. Brushing first, clean it all out, make it nice and shiny, rinse it out, and then floss. These are great techniques that will help you maintain good oral hygiene throughout the process. Here are some what-if situations. For example, what if something is poking me? Sometimes you have a wire that's poking out the very back bracket and it's hidden up against your cheek or right next to your jawbone there, and that doesn't feel very comfortable. Generally speaking, we don't try to leave these wires this long. A little bit of wire outside the back, not necessarily a bad thing. That means it's engaging the bracket completely to try and control the tooth. And if it's something like this, you might be able to adjust it on your own. We prefer you not cut the wire if you can avoid it. This is something you might consider. I've got a link that will be included here. It's called a Weingart plier. It's an orthodontic plier. You're going to be in braces for a while. You might consider an $11 purchase. Not that you need to be an orthodontist at home, but this might help you avoid extra visits or in case of an emergency and you need to like move something around. Well, if you have a wire that's long on one side, you can go to the other side and check, get some good light, look way back there. And if the other side doesn't look very long or you can't see it, what you do is you go to the side opposite of the long side, you grab in the back, squeeze on the wire, and you just try to shift one way. See that? I kind of pushed it that way too much, and now it's not long on this side. So the wire usually can move a little bit easier, and you just do little pushes, squeeze, and you shift it one way until you get it where you like it. So you don't want to grab on the side that's long and pull, right? You could try that, not necessarily what you want to do. You come to the side that's a little bit long, pretend I'm coming in the mouth this way, and you can just pull one side to the other, okay? Grab in there, and you pull that way. That's how you could adjust if a wire was poking on one side or the other. You grab it in there, be very gentle, and just kind of push it the opposite direction to get it a little bit more balanced. Sometimes when you get your braces on for the first time, it gets twisted around the bracket to hold the wire in place. Usually it can make the bracket or the wire engage even tighter than just a normal color. But sometimes during eating or movement, this wire gets pushed up, and all you need to do is you need to take your finger or the back of a pencil eraser and you just kind of push it back down underneath, all right? So that's a wire tie. Sometimes that can get out of position. You just try to push it back in place. And finally, another common poke is when you have a bracket, sometimes the brackets have hooks or the little posts, right, that come down in the back. We use these for rubber bands specifically. The rubber bands can attach around, not the colors, the rubber bands to help fix your bite that stretch from the top to the bottom. And sometimes those posts will stick out. If you're feeling it's hard to fix those, they have a certain angle. Sometimes what we can do is if you put pressure on the bracket, sometimes you can use like your fingernail and try to push the bracket post in without knocking the bracket off, and that can help you so it's not poking as much. If you have questions, if you're concerned poking, snap a picture. Now, speaking of pictures, you might consider another little purchase. If you want, you don't have to do it this way, but it's a cheek retractor. Maybe like $4, $5 on Amazon. You pop that in there, something like this, where it just helps pull the cheeks apart so that maybe you can get a better picture. Send it to the office. We could try to review it with you and see if there's something we need to do more immediately or if we can help you manage at home. Okay, the next one is, what if my bracket breaks? Let's say you're eating something and boom, it comes off. Now it's flopping around in the back here. First off, if the bracket is still in place, it's hanging on the wire, what you can do is you can take that bracket, try to slide it off with your finger, and then keep the bracket. Put it in a little baggie, bring it back to you. Now you've got some extra wire. If the wire is just resting there, it's not poking you, no big deal. If the wire is still bothering you, you might consider something like ortho wax. We'll come back to this in a second. If the bracket is already not there, you may have swallowed it. Usually that's not the end of the world. So sometimes it just comes out the other end. So that's if you have a back bracket that comes off. Sometimes you have a more front bracket, meaning that there's a bracket in the back and then a bracket in the front and you've got a bracket in the middle. Well, let's say this happens, right? So you've got a middle bracket that's come off and it's like slipping around, right? You can see how it can go back and forth, and sometimes it flips over. Unfortunate, it's not the end of the world. What you can do is you try to flip it in the right spot, find a comfortable spot, right? See if you can flip it around and then get it to, with your fingers, you're kind of moving things around. Try to move it around with your fingers so that it rests just right on the tooth. So even if it's flopping around, no big deal. You can try to flip back over to the right spot, or you can just let it slide around. And again, as long as it's not hurting you, then you can call in, send a picture, and we can try to schedule an appointment to get you in to fix that. If you have a bracket that is broken, whether it's in the back, bracket that's in between other brackets, you can hold on to a bracket that in the back that's sliding off, keep that, bring it back with you. If it's a bracket in the middle, it's like flipping around, it's not causing any pain, then just try to find a good spot for it to rest. Sometimes you can use wax, whether it's for a long wire that's poking out, or maybe a bracket that's flipping around that's really bothering you. Get a decent size. And the reason why is because you stick that in there, and if it's big enough, then you can try to cake it in between the teeth, right? So if you wanted to put something on like for a very back, the wire that's there, you want a big enough piece that can engage this bracket too, that might help it hold it in place better. Or you try to, get it into this little divot right here and this divot right here. So let's see if we can push that on, right? Make a nice little ball, and that might secure it. That's pretty big, right? You might be able to get away with things that are smaller, but just know that if it's too small, then sometimes the wax just falls off. This is a way how you can deal with poking wires, poking posts, or the things that are poking. You get wax that is big enough, and it might help by putting it in, and you can help secure it in place until you can be seen. Orthodontic wax. You can buy this online too. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about at the beginning of braces is you might have what's called the bite turbo. We have another video about this. You can check it out. It's a blue glue that we put on some teeth. The purpose of them, if your bite is really deep, meaning that your top teeth come down past your bottom teeth, well, we have to put the brackets on, and if the top teeth are hitting the brackets, you could break the brackets. Now, we were trying to reduce the risk for that. So what we do is we put some blue bumps on your teeth back here so that when you bite down, you hit on those instead of your brackets. Well, sometimes those blue bumps can come off. It's not necessarily the end of the world. I may have the other bump, or if they both come off and you're hitting your brackets, that's something where you got to come in for pretty soon. But if one of them comes off and it's not causing you pain because of the asymmetry, then maybe we can hold off until your next appointment. Feel free to take pictures, send it to us. We can review together. And if it's causing enough problems or we feel like we really need to get it back on, then we can schedule you accordingly and try to get that back in place. I wish that brackets never broke, but they do, especially when we're trying to learn how to live with braces. It's very new. It may happen to you, although some people get through without breaking any brackets. It could be you. There you have it. I'm excited for you to begin your braces journey or your clear aligners journey. It is a long process. And then remember some of those tips that you might run into with your braces. And of course, we're on your team. Feel free to give the office a call. Like I said, send pictures and we can try to review this with you. Ask questions along the way. And before you know it, we'll have some straight teeth and your beautiful bite. That's all I've got. Just a little PFOing so you know where you're going. Packard out.